Hello, hello. Hey guys, welcome to this week's edition of Gymwright Live. What is going on? Let me get myself in a row. We'll get everybody a minute here to kind of get rolling as I do the same for myself. All right, very good. Okay, so this week on Gymwright Live, we're going to be discussing team meetings, my favorite structure for them, and why you should consider making them mandatory for your staff. But before we get into all that fun stuff, I would like to give a warm thank you to SiteRight.io as our official sponsor for this show. Every gym owner deserves to have a great website. Now, there is no excuse not to have one. Upgrade your online presence by going to SiteRight.io. They are up to some pretty cool stuff that's happening right now, including some really special offers for the audience of this show that you definitely don't want to miss out on. So if you think that your website could probably be better and or be easier to use and or be getting a better rate for it and so on, make sure you head on over to SiteRight.io and see what they've got cooking. Also, if you are one of our many awesome podcast listeners, but are not yet a member of our free private Facebook group, The Network, guys, you are missing out. We've got almost 2,000 motivated gym owners in this group, plus our team of growth specialists. And you're going to find tons of great conversations, the video version of this show, and step-by-step how-tos of some of the most effective strategies out there for gym owners today. Simply visit gymwright.com/VIP to get access to that right away. Or you can just look up The Network by Gymwright in your Facebook search bar. All right, let's get this party started. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Gymwright Live. I'm your host, Markus Gerszi, and like I mentioned a few moments ago, what we're going to be talking about today is why you should make your team meetings mandatory. We're going to dive into the real reasons why people are having issues with this sort of thing. I'm going to talk to you guys about the structure and, again, why I think you should consider making them required by your staff. So let's dig in. So one of the challenges I hear about most commonly, and maybe you fall into this category a little bit or maybe a lot, but what I tend to hear commonly is how gym owners struggle with getting their team to really buy into their jobs and show up to the gym's events, or show up early or stay late to help someone and do the other aspects of their job beyond just running the class, like opening and closing procedures, showing up to team meetings, and so on. So, often I hear them telling me that they think that the problem is, I'm just not giving them enough classes to care, or, they all have jobs and busy lives outside of their coaching role here, or I don't pay them enough to care, or worse, we're just trading membership. I can't expect them to come to a meeting. So those things could all be true a little, could be true a lot, but overall, here's the bigger picture. And I want you to zoom out a little bit. The real problem is that you're not treating them like real employees or team members in probably more ways than one, right? And it has to do with, what our expectations are and setting them right out of the get-go when someone does become a member of our team, right? When we are onboarding, or we're even in, let's say, the interview process, and we've done some episodes on how to even, start the interview process, internships, hiring, firing, all that stuff. But when someone is first coming on board, this is your opportunity and kind of your obligation, if you want this to go right, to really outline what it entails to be a team member at your gym. At my gym, it was a requirement for you to come on, when you worked for us, that you have to attend the monthly staff meeting. We let people know in advance, but if you work here, I don't care if you coach one class or 20 classes, you're required to show up, because if you're going to be interfacing with our clients and delivering our product, you need to know what is going on in the business, right? And so a lot of gyms, and even when we first started, we did not do this. We did not require it. We had to change that and retroactively make that part of the agreement. We actually lost some people because of it, because it was not, they were not willing to play fully as a member of our team, which tells me more than just they don't want to come to a meeting or they don't think it's important. It tells me that they're not bought into what we are doing. And that is really the main thing. We have to get them to buy in. showing up to a team meeting or, completing that closeout checklist 100% every time. These need to be requirements of the job, not hey, it'd be really awesome if when you shut the gym down at night, you remembered to do A, B, and C. You've got that checklist. I've told you about this 19 different times. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'll take care of it. And then they don't. All that tells me is that they're not bought in. They feel like this is like, I'm going to do you a favor sometimes if I remember and have time and feel like it, right? Rather than this is what I signed up for as a team member at this gym. And so I'm going to do that every time, right? So that is what I'm getting at here, guys, is we have to make the things that are important and are required for us to knock it out of the park consistently. Remember, our coaches are our product. It's not the barbell. It's not the paint on the walls or the facility. The coaches delivering the class or the product. So if they're not fully bought into what you're all about, and not just from a programming standpoint or even to the degree of using the same points of performance and standards that you require at the gym, which hopefully also should be outlined, but every single aspect, the culture, the events that we're doing, knowing what we're doing with our content, when, why, what's the next event, why has it been a while since we did the last workshop, and all the other gym news and information that oftentimes coaches are being asked, or at very least need to know so that they can play along. Everyone needs to be singing from the same sheet of music. So that's why I say make it a requirement. And we got to build that in right when they're first coming on board. All right, so let's jump to the structure. So when it comes to structuring this team meeting, I have a flow that I like to follow, and I teach this to our clients. I'm going to walk you through this here today. Obviously, you can make adjustments, and we make adjustments per, on a case-by-case basis per the, the requirements or the goals for that particular gym owner. But you could just take this as is and then make adjustments as you go. So generally, I like to look at it as two main parts. And I hope my audio is sounding okay here. So we look at it as two main parts. The first part is I call it the business part, and I'll break down what's included in that. And then the second part is the educational part. And this is where we're going to be teaching them something new. And I'll get into that in a few minutes. So let's start with the first part being business. So this is where we're going to start with general news and updates about what's going on in the gym, right? Hey, we've added the 4:30 p.m. class because it's the fall schedule again, or that sort of thing. We made some adjustments. We had that leaky faucet in the bathroom. We got that fixed, but there's still an issue. So they'll be back next week. So just keep your eye out for construction. Whatever those kinds of general news and updates would be, that's what we would put there. Then I want to celebrate some wins. So this is where we're going to talk about, we're going to celebrate whatever the victories were in the last month that we can all celebrate together. So we'll point out at least, 2 or 3 things that we can all celebrate together. From there, we go to members. And this is where we're going to have a list of all members that we gained last month, all members that we lost last month, so to cancellations and holds. And we're going to also have the list of any new or trial members. And the idea here is that we want to be able to all as a team understand, why when someone joined up, we've got, Susie, John, Carol, blah, 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 on our gained list. Well, let's all talk about them because maybe someone's had them all in their class and none of us have experienced having that person in our class, or, we want to all be able to help them and make them feel like we know them when they come into our class and be able to give them the best experience possible, right? So for example, if John is a really shy person, but he really opens up when you start talking about, football or whatever, then that'd be a great tool for the other coaches to know that when they come into class, they could start talking about whatever. If they feel like they need to break the ice with John, they have a tool they can use, right? Or, hey, so-and-so is a really good mover, but he's got injuries in his shoulders that I think he may push himself too hard. We got to really keep an eye on him. That sort of thing, right? Help the whole team be successful in bringing those new people on. Now, when it comes to lost, this is where we want to say, all right, who did we lose to cancellations and to holds and why? And now we can have, if you're doing an exit survey, like we hope you are, as people leave, you're gathering that information. But oftentimes it's the phone call or the conversation that was had after class, or maybe a text message that was sent to a coach after the fact, or just some grumbling around the gym or something like that, where you can really find out why they maybe actually quit or what happened. And oftentimes the coaches have that insight, even though maybe you as the gym owner may not. And so we, again, all want to be able to chime in and provide any information we can to help us all understand and learn from it. And then same thing with our new trial people, right? This is where we want to go through who do we have, who's brand new, what are we looking out for? And again, make sure everyone understands. So we're going to address all the members. Then we're going to move to last month. Now, when we go to last month, we're going to address a few categories. We're going to address the events that we did last month, and we're going to address content. So for the events, we would review, hey, this is what we did last month. We had bowling night. It was great. We had a huge turnout. Thank you guys who were able to make it. Our goal was to get 20 people. We had 32 people show up and go over the event. And the 3 questions I like to ask are what went well, what could have gone better, and what are we going to do to make sure it's better next time? And take any notes. And we're going to apply that to every one of these little categories. We're going to apply that to our events, and we're going to apply that again to then now content. Now, if you are working with us, then you will be working from a calendar that we build out that has all of your content laid out for you, step by step, daily, everything. You know exactly what you're doing. Now, the beauty in having that calendar, aside from just knowing what you're going to do, is that you can also use this as a tool to then discuss it with your team and say, okay, last month we talked about, our theme was this. We talked about this and this in our podcast or on our Facebook Lives. We put this content out there, these posts, and we can talk about what went well, what could have gone better, and what can we do to improve it. And then we're going to look at not just the content and all that stuff, but we're going to then look at, okay, now we have, and this is, so all of last month, and even you can even pull up your Facebook admin and take a look at like what posts maybe performed differently, or hey, this theme was good, I like the comments on that. Discuss it. Make sure they understand what's happening in your content strategy, and you can also address participation and all that as well. So then we go to this month, and we follow the same template. So we're going to say, okay, so what's happening this month, and then we're going to talk about any events, any content. Hey, we've got our double under clinic coming up next in 2 weeks. We've got X amount of people registered. We want to get at least 10 more. What can we do to make that happen? Content. Here's our theme. Here's what we're going to be doing in our day-to-day, in our weekly featured stuff, and so on. And here's our featured member. And make sure we pump them up. We had some really interesting stuff we learned about them in the interview. So make sure we talk about them. Maybe even give them some shout outs in class. We'll be doing so on social. And make sure that everyone is up to speed on all of the info to make the content and event this month work as best as possible. And then we apply that same concept to next month. And this is where, again, having a calendar of what you're doing planned out in advance is so powerful, because you can get your team involved. Hey guys, next month we're going to be focusing on this, and we're going to have, these are the things we're going to be covering, and here are the topics I want to do in my Facebook Live. What do you think? We're featuring, Susie for our featured member because of this concept that we're trying to, focus on. What do you think? Oh, I think it'd be cooler if we did, Michael instead, because he's got this crazy story. They get to participate. So not only do they see that you have a method to the madness, and that the content strategy is not just random, pull up pictures and, who left the plates out, but there is intention behind the story and the overall narrative that we are putting out there as a company, and that we are doing this as a collective team, and that their voice matters. And when they feel like their voice matters and they get to put their insight into the plan, and maybe we're making adjustments based on that stuff, they're going to have way more ownership, be way more likely to participate online, right? If whether it's you want them to like, share, comment, etc., but just all around having more buy-in to what the gym is doing as a whole. So that's what we do for next month. I also, by the way, roll in any like upcoming general important info, like construction's going to start on this, or whatever it is. Make sure they know about that stuff ahead of time too. And from there, we then switch to the second half of the meeting. So this is all the business stuff, right? We talked about all the information, and you can add some other things to it, but I think that's the minimum requirement to have a really good team meeting where your team is really understanding what's happening. The second half now is education. Now, this is very rarely done. When I start working with someone, if they're doing a team meeting, they may be talking about programming and so on, which you can obviously also have within that if you're not having like weekly updates or emails or videos or something that you're sending out. But this is the part where you, the owner, or the other players on the team can now teach each other things and make sure that we are constantly learning. So we're providing ongoing education by coming to this meeting. So it's not just about the business stuff, but it's about learning something new. And personally, I like to have a system where I alternated between hard skills and soft skills. So for example, like hard skills would be, we're going to work on some movement stuff today. So, hey, we're going to be breaking down the snatch balance, all its variations, points of performance, and what we're doing, because we're going to be getting into a big, cycle of that coming up in programming. So that could be one, for example, right? And you can get people together, and you basically should treat this. I always considered it as they were paying me to be there for this thing, like they were attending a workshop. So I would have a plan. I'd talk about what, I'd talk about why, I'd have an agenda laid out, I would have drills laid out, I would have people mingling, doing icebreakers. This is a chance for them to bond, for you to really show up as their leader, as the one who's teaching them things. So it creates respect, establishes that leadership role, or compounds that role. And so doing a hard skill or a soft skill, like, hey, we're going to do whiteboard presentation, or how to close a class perfectly, or how do we handle walk-ins, or our SOP for this. So we can work on all different types of things. And I like to just alternate between it because it keeps people engaged, and allows me to just kind of address my overall agenda of, we're working on some, movement stuff, or some tweaks in, how we're delivering things, or just getting them to bond on that stuff because it's also fun. But more importantly, it was around, making sure that people as a whole understood, whether it was tweaks to standard operating procedures, or again, those skills that they can develop together and see how, they can teach each other and get them to build camaraderie with one another as well. And then that would be the whole last half of that meeting. Now, the meeting overall, typically I would do a 90 minute to 2 hour long meeting once a month. And some of you may be thinking, like, hey, that's a really long time. That's a lot to ask. Well, you're paying them to be here. This is not a meeting that you're expecting them to just show up to because they work here. You're going to have to pay them for this, just like you pay them to do anything else. But again, if you make it a requirement of the job and you're paying them for it, they have no reason to not be there, unless it's a really good one that they need to let you know about in advance, because otherwise it'd be just like showing up or not showing up to a scheduled class that they were supposed to do, right? So there needs to be repercussions already in place, part of their job description, just like how if you don't show up for a class, you get one warning, a write-up, whatever. Needs to have the same thing. The team meetings need to be a part of that from the get-go. And then lastly, I like to provide food and beverage, even if it's, just coffee, depending on the time of day, or if we, brought tacos or something like that. It tends to, again, feel a little bit more fun for people when they show up and there's treats and there's something unexpected. And they can even participate in that. And then the last trick I want to teach you guys here, and this is about how to plan the next one in advance, is make sure that everybody at the meeting already knows and verbally confirms about the next month's meeting. So if you're doing your September meeting on September 20th, you should already have the date or date options ready that you're going to nail down with your team while they're all there, and they need to expect that that's going to be the case. So they need to bring their calendars or have it on their phone or whatever they need to be able to make that decision, so that we can firm up and tie down a date in time for next month's meeting right there at this meeting. So that way it's not this back and forth via email and whatnot, and we can get it all nailed down. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Again, the whole idea here is about creating a deeper buy-in. The team meetings are such a critical part of us cultivating that overall community, getting that buy-in, making sure your coaches are all on the same page, respecting, the company that they work for and all the things. It's not a very expensive thing to do. It's extremely high ROI for you as the owner, because not only does it get them up to speed and make them feel like they're a part of this thing and understanding the why behind the events and content and all that, but it continues to establish you as a leader in this ecosystem, which is so critical if you're trying to build and scale a team. So on that note, if you guys have any thoughts, feedback, or things that you've seen work really well for you, please put them in the comments below, so that we can all learn from each other. That's the power of this awesome community here in the network. We all get better together. So I want to thank all of you motivated gym owners out there for joining us again today. If you found today's episode helpful, again, let us know in the comments. If you're interested in learning more about how we can help you take your business to the next level, head on over to gymwright.com/Markus, that's Markus, and apply for a free strategy session. The call is with me directly, and this is so that we can get to know you, where you're at, where you're trying to go, and I can walk you through our one-on-one coaching program that we have that is designed to help you completely revamp your sales and marketing engine, all of the systems related to that, and show you how to break through and grow and hit your 1 year and 3 year goals. So all that said, again, thank you to our sponsor, SiteRight.io. Set up your online presence today by visiting SiteRight.io. And again, I think they might still have a handful of spots open for their first 100 clients. That like super deal they put together for people here in the network. So unless your website is amazing and you don't have any desire to make it perform a lot better for a lot less money than any other system in our industry, be sure to contact them to learn more about how you can take advantage of that offer. That's it for today. Now get out there and build something that matters. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.